But I remember when the iPad came out, it's like they're trying to solve for a problem that doesn't exist. Like who's going to buy this tablet? I vividly remember thinking that this is dumb. Like, why is Apple doing this? I didn't know Microsoft was doing the same thing. And obviously, how many ever years later, clearly they knew something that I didn't.
Welcome to the Yeah But podcast, where leaders tune in when they want to be unstuck and unstoppable. I'm Mark Wolf, president of Mark A. Wolf Enterprises and author of Yeah But Cut Through the Noise to Live, Learn, and Lead Better. In each episode, I interview relatable people who share their yeah buts along with their doubts, fears, and alibis, and then share how to overcome them to unlock true potential. Whether it's personal growth, leadership challenges, or simply living with more intention. Hello, Don. Welcome to the podcast.
All right. Thanks for having me. It's good to see you.
So we're talking about your yeah, but and things that you may be stuck on, or things where you're like, man, if I could just get past it. So I think you picked a few yeah, buts. Can you talk about the ones that you picked and what concept or what you're trying to accomplish that gets you want to get unstuck from?
Sure. So, yeah, the three that I picked is one, I don't have time. Two, I'm not ready. And three, I'm not sure what to do next. And actually, I picked a fourth one, kind of similar to that. I'm not sure what to do next, but it's what's the plan?
So tell us what you're trying to accomplish that you use these yeah, buts.
Well, you and I have actually talked about this in a couple different LinkedIn lives and different conversations. I have a passion for company and team culture. And as a security leader, that's not obviously necessarily my primary responsibility, but I do see that as something, like I said, that I have a passion about, but I'm not quite sure beyond, just sitting on LinkedIn Live and talking about it. I'm not sure what does that mean? What should I be doing with that? Should I be doing something with that? And if so, what? And where in the world would I fit that in my schedule?
So let's take each one kind of separately. So I don't have time. Can you talk about that?
Sure. Everything's around prioritization, right? And so I have a busy uh, day job. I've got other extracurricular responsibilities. I've got a family. I feel like, as I evaluate different things I could be doing, trying to understand where this sits within that prioritization. Is this the best use of my prioritized time, as I learned from you many years ago, to be asking? And how do I evaluate that?
And the next one you said, I'm
I'm not
not ready.
Comes a little bit to do with the allotment of time. I don't have a lot of bandwidth, and maybe I'm using that as an excuse. I also feel like I do have a passion for this, but am I the right person to be speaking to this? Do I have anything of value to add to this conversation, to this topic? At times I feel like I do. Like we have those conversations on LinkedIn, and I kind of, okay, yeah. I mean, I feel like I've got something valuable to say, and other times I don't. So I don't know. Is this the right time? Am I ready? Are other people going to find this valuable, or do I need to gain additional experience before I'm ready to really dig into this and do whatever, quote unquote, this is?
This comes up a lot. It's interesting how the questions you're bringing up are universal, right? Am I
Hmm.
qualified is another chapter in the book to say, should I even be talking about this? And they overlap. The other one you mentioned is, I'm not sure what to do next. Tell us a little
Right.
bit about that.
Yeah. So you and I have done a couple of LinkedIn lives related to team and company culture. Those have been great. I don't know what the next right step is. And I kind of feel a little bit stuck in that. I need some help or just some time to think about what is the next step or what is the long-term plan. And then how do I start backing into what are those next steps to take?
And that leads into the next one. What's the plan? So that's very related. So it's
Yeah.
interesting as you put them all together, right? It's, I don't have the time to do it. I don't know I'm ready, and I really don't know what I'm going to do with what I have.
Right.
So I guess before I give you these chapters to unpack and see how they help or if things change or if things stay the same, how are you approaching this as a desire to even want to explore? Why this? Why now?
Well, I've seen example after example of how not to do it, how culture can be something that is not prioritized and or toxic. And the more examples I see that I experience directly or that I hear from other peers, I feel like there's something I can do to make that better for my team, for other teams, for other leaders. And the frequency of how encountering these culture examples seems like it could be the right time to do something about that now.
Well, let's leave it there. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to send you the introduction and the chapters you outlined.
Okay.
And technically, I can send you the whole book. And if you see other ones that overlap, we'll have a second interview and just tell me what you learned.
Fantastic. I'm looking forward to reading those chapters, and I'm sure there will be valuable insight.
Hi, I'm Mark A. Wolf, author of Yeah, But. Do you ever feel like there's never enough time to pursue your goals? Guns N' Roses spent 15 years and $13 million on one album, stuck in the yeah, but we're not ready trap, and it flopped. My book, Yeah, But, tackles time based excuses like this with a quick finder that helps you jump to the yeah, but that's holding you back. Click the show notes, get the book on Amazon or Apple Books. Hey, Don. Welcome back to the Yeah, But podcast.
Thanks for having me, Mark. Glad to be back.
Part two. So let's recap. What was your yeah, but surrounding, and then tell us what the yeah, buts were.
Okay, so we chose. Well, I chose four yeah buts out of the list. Although I will say, beyond even just narrowing it down to those four, I saw a lot of application to many of the yeah buts and even overlapping ones. And as I read the chapters, I could certainly see how I could fit certain situations into several yeah buts. I'd say the first one that I chose and the one that really resonated with me the most is the yeah, but I don't have time. That was the big one. In fact, Mark, you remember, I'm sure, quite well in having some earlier conversation a few years ago about, and I'm sure this is common in all the work that you've done with other leaders, is the time crunch and thinking that we don't have enough time and time working against us versus for allowing or modifying our approach so that we have time work for us. So that was the one that I certainly resonated with, found a lot of value in over the years, even outside of this book. We've had a lot of conversation about that. And I think we can go into some of those details talking about how those concepts have helped me over time. So that was one of those chapters. The other one was what's the plan? So I'm a planner. Right?
Mm-hmm.
That's just how I'm wired. If you ask my wife, we're taking a trip, who's doing the planning? That's me. So when it comes to the workplace, my default is to plan. What you've unpacked in that chapter and what we've had conversations with over time is the minimum viable product. And you really brought home some of those concepts and have challenged me personally to consider, and I've adapted my approach over time to consider what's good enough to get started. It doesn't have to be perfect. And if it is, if we're attempting perfection, most likely I'm going to be disappointed in the outcome. So let's talk about I'm not ready. I have felt that way many times in my professional career, personal as well, thinking about parenthood, but talking about on the professional side, I attempted to not let that feeling discourage me or dissuade me from jumping into something I didn't quite feel like I was ready for. And I have felt quite a few times that I just wasn't quite ready for something. The concepts that you unpack in that chapter, I've used in certain situations, and good reminders of some of the challenges we'll kind of get in our head about but not feeling like we're ready, especially when in the age of social media and you're comparing yourself or, peers, LinkedIn, whatever you're looking at. Oh, I should be doing XYZ. Why don't I feel like I'm ready to do that yet? And that holding you back. So going back to my planning, right? If I don't have a plan, what am I supposed to do next? And how can I navigate a situation where I don't have that plan fully completed or I don't feel like I'm ready to navigate the hurdles that come my way? And to be honest, I don't know that I feel like I'm necessarily always ready to make a decision on what to do next. And navigating that with information coming at you, it can be daunting. I don't know that I've got that one quite squared away yet, but I'm still working on it.
But it's good to hear that you're working through this. And what I also heard is you started with time. And I think that seems to be, in my experience with others, there's never time. But we talk about in the book about 1,440 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody's got the same 1,440 minutes. And it sounds like, yeah, I understand, Mark, but you don't understand my situation. We talk about how you really do own your time and somebody else will own it if you don't own it.
Sure.
And it comes down to prioritization, but it also comes down to what we waste, right? A lot of times we waste time and then say we don't have it. But when we waste money and then say we don't have it, we create a budget because we don't want to be in debt. With time, it's going to be a time debt forever if you don't learn how to budget and use your time. So, Don, as you think about some of the takeaways from the chapter and the examples and the case studies about time, there was also one about hand washing. You see how ridiculous that would be, that people were literally dying because they were going from autopsies to birthing children. How did that story or some of the other stories in that chapter either resonate or you were like, yeah, that's too far-fetched to be real and captivate you?
That was a interesting case study. I think time, your analogy of putting money against time, right? We can't get back any of the time that we've lost, but we don't value time as much as we do value money. And so if you try to apply the value you're putting towards money to your time and spending it wisely and thinking about what is the best use of my prioritized time, BUMPT, which I have used and need reminders to use occasionally. But if you look at that and say, okay, rather than scrolling on social media or reading news or watching news endlessly, or even something that is good, but it's not the best choice for you, I think it certainly has helped me choose how best to use my time. And again, I need that reminder occasionally. So I have on my monitor that I'm pointing at, it's taped best use of my prioritized time, BUMPT. Sometimes that gets lost. I don't always glance to it, but I do look at it. Okay, is this the best use of my time? Am I doing something professionally that may be a good thing, but I should be spending more time with my daughters or my wife or something outside of professional development or inside professional development in that kind of arena? Am I spending time on something that I thought was important, but I need to shift my focus if my eventual goal is XYZ?
And thank you for that. BUMPT is, if you make an acronym you're not the only one, there's lots of clients that have actually used that because prioritizing your time, it kind of has packed in that acronym, everything, right? Mm-hmm. I've seen so many people not have to go to certain meetings anymore because they ask and say, do I really need to be here? But it's interesting because they always knew it, but now they had a reason and then it became part of the culture. And then they started reducing the amount of meetings they were having because they were like, we're only going to invite people that are decision makers. And if they're required to be here and if they're all in attendance, then we're going to have the meeting. And people are like, oh, and that's it, right? It's supposed to kind of shake you into rethinking foundational truths. Like, I'm not telling anybody something new that there's 24 hours in a day, but we don't act like that's something that we know. So common knowledge isn't always common sense.
Agreed. Yeah.
So,
And stepping away from those meetings is an example where you're sitting with your camera off and you're on mute and just have to be there. Do you have to be there? Probably not. But simply asking that question certainly does help.
so we talk about what's the plan, and there was a few case studies and conversations in there about planning and about plans. What do you remember out of some of the chapters and some of the things you read that resonated and you're like, hey, Mark, I didn't know this?
Yeah, the chapter, one of the case studies in there was about the Microsoft Courier tablet. I had never heard of that. Seeing how Microsoft approached the tablet market, tablet product against what Apple did was striking, right? And honestly, the first iPad, while it was novel, it wasn't, I don't know, it wasn't great, but it was new and people adapted to it. But I remember when the iPad came out, it's like they're trying to solve for a problem that doesn't exist. Like who's going to buy this tablet? I vividly remember thinking that this is dumb. Like, why is Apple doing this? I didn't know Microsoft was doing the same thing. And obviously, how many ever years later, clearly they knew something that I didn't. And that's fair. They probably know a lot of things that I don't know. So, all that to say, their plan included getting something out there to solve for a problem that maybe people didn't know existed, or quite a few, majority of people didn't know existed. And yet it was what launched this tablet market that's still huge, still going strong. Microsoft, on the other hand, was kind of going through this process at the similar time and dumped tons of resources and effort into creating some tablet that was going to be the perfect new type of operating system and a new way of doing business. And they let their competitor get ahead of them. They planned it right out of obsolescence. They never even released a prototype. It's interesting to see the downside of planning so much that you end up not achieving your goal at all.
And that's why the Axl Rose example of one of the most expensive albums ever produced that took the longest to produce that we probably don't remember because it literally took so long. So, Don, the thing I want to show people and just even remind you is if you take so long that there's never a version 1 because it's going to be perfect, it's never going to be perfect. And especially being in the technology world, there's never anything released that doesn't have alterations, iterations, and patches to it.
Very true.
But there's a difference between unacceptable and just releasing something and not. And it's hard for a lot of perfectionists to get to that level to at least let it see the light of day. But as we all know, the more you get people to see it, the more feedback they can give. And they can use it in ways where I'm watching iPads be used at hockey games and kiosks and places where you're like, would never have thought you're going to have devices, and they're pervasive everywhere now.
And Microsoft finally did get into the game in 2012 or whatever it was when they came out with the Surface. And that was an MVP because that thing was trash. It was terrible. They're better now. In fact, I'm talking to you on one right now. But yeah, that was terrible initially. But at least they got one out there, right?
And people with more resources with you are making mistakes. How do we think? And I use that example. How do you think that we're going to do better than people that have all this knowledge and amazing, talented people on their team? And they've been through this before, but we're going to be better than they are creating perfection out of the gate because your mileage may vary, but that's not what I've seen in working with clients at large companies or small. It's better to at least dialogue and have some conversations and things like that.
Right.
And, are you ever ready? So Don, now that you've gone through these chapters in the book, and what's going to change on that topic, that issue, that concept of what you had the but about and how you can move forward?
I think for me, it is what's still resonating most with me is not having the time and not feeling ready. Previously, we worked together in a coaching capacity where I didn't feel like I was ready to take a next step, or what even was the next step for me to take. And there's certain situations now, even that I'm working through at the moment, that I'm kind of feeling the same way again. And so what should I be using? How should I be using my time to make sure that I take the time to understand what's next for me and then how to actually achieve that?
Yeah, that's great. That's owning your time in a different way to get a different outcome.
Mm-hmm.
And what I'm hearing from you is that the stories that were in the book at least educated you. You saw that even people in your field have struggled with this same issue in
Mm-hmm.
many different ways. And it's still an opportunity. So, Don, what's next now that you've read this? We've had conversations, and what do you do next regarding?
One, I would say it's some positive self-talk. And I'm not great at staying in touch with my emotions. So my wife will tell you that. So it's positive self-talk. And I may not feel like I am ready. I may not feel like I have enough time. But if I reframe some of those questions, reframe how I'm approaching the situation, reframe how I'm thinking about what I've come from and where I am today and where I want to go next, understanding what does the next 1, 2, 3, 5 years look like for me, and what do I need to start doing today to move in that direction. I have been doing that over the last few years. I see progress being made. It's a commitment to continuing to do that, and not it's easy for me to get distracted and go back into a routine of spending my time on things that are easier to do. So making a conscious choice, talking to myself, we're ready to do, I'm ready, the royal I'm ready to do something different. It's time to prioritize my time.
And that's where the butt busters come in, right? The questions at the end to make you think things through, to be like, what's going to be different? How are you
Mm-hmm.
going to change your mindset about specifically about time? What are you going to implement or work on to be able to do this? It's good to see that you're doing that. And it's also good because books are a lot less expensive than coaches. So you could read a book, but having a coach always helps. But
Yeah.
also knowing that there's certain things you need to do, and know that if it's not moving ahead, we're not getting any younger. So when, if not now, then when?
Yeah.
And if not someone, then who, right, can help you? So,
And that accountability, I think, is key, right? I mean, that's when we worked together in that capacity, the accountability to say, okay, this is what I'm working towards. Having someone there to say, okay, good and well that you said that's what you're working for towards. Let me see the progress. Let's check in. Right.
yeah. Yeah. It requires some getting out of your head and into action, and then actually validating the results. Like, hey, wife of mine, how am I doing? And she could be like, oh, you were starting that? Or, oh, I didn't even know. Like,
We
you're
we
like,
really
okay, because
we really want to go there. Okay. Well, let me give you some feedback on that.
right? And then sometimes you get like a, wow, this has been such a significant change. And somebody's like, whoa, okay, well, hold on. Yeah, the effort showed.
Right.
But it's good to be able to get that validated too. And
Mm-hmm.
we're all going to have blind spots of things that we're not really strong at, but it's good to at least know what you have to work on. It's not going to be a strength for a lot of people. Yeah, buts are just ways to stop things.
Mm.
And if you want to get past it, you got to look and go, well, can I get past it? Or is this always going to be a yeah, but, and it's just something that I address by working the other strengths that I have? Okay.
Got it.
So,
Yeah.
Don, this has been great. Anything else you want to wrap up with that you want other people to know? Because, they're supposed to see that you're kind of just like them. You have the same struggles with time.
You're always going to have an excuse. And I'm lumping myself into that because I've come up with some doozies on what's going to prevent me from doing XYZ. So you're not alone in that. It's really making a choice to make something change, to do something different. And you point this out in the butt busters in several different areas, but it's just getting started. doing something, making forward action, taking a small step. In the time chapter, you talked about just, getting 10 or 15 minutes of extra time away from your phone or away from something that's distracting you. That's a really small step. But I have found taking those very incremental small steps have helped me make bigger changes. So I'd encourage everybody to just start moving.
Thank you for listening to the Yeah But podcast. If today's episode provided valuable perspective on how to overcome the excuses that can hold you back, let us know in the comments. Remember, it's not about the yeah buts. It's about finding ways to live, learn, and lead better every day. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with someone who could use a little kick to get past their yeah buts. And don't forget to follow us on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. And for even more tips, connect with me at markawolf.com/podcast or on LinkedIn. Until next time, keep challenging those excuses and keep moving forward.